Before I start the video today, I just wanted to say I included that War Table tribute to Chadwick Boseman at the start of this video because I thought that they would do a much better job with that than I could do in terms of the graphics and stuff. I thought it was a really good, really nice touch. And I also wanted to give personally my condolences to the Boseman family. I know it doesn't mean a whole lot coming from me, but what Mr. Boseman was able to do or accomplish in the 4 years since he had his diagnosis was like the definition of heroism, in my opinion. When most people would just give up after they got news like that, he put his body through hell. He continued to work in Hollywood. His incredible work within the MCU is immortalizing. It's going to allow his ability to inspire millions of kids around the world to continue like well beyond his passing. And I really just wanted to say rest in peace, Mr. Boseman. You're quite an inspiration to a lot of people, and you're going to leave a really, really great legacy behind. I really just wanted to make sure that was done first and foremost before I got into today's video. I have a ton of respect for Mr. Boseman and his career. I actually spent the last few days kind of reading as much as I could about him and his life, his story, and his work. And I encourage anyone else to do the same. He was just quite the inspiring man. But with that being said, there was a War Table event today, and yeah, let's just go ahead and discuss what it was all about. First off, I just want to talk about a little bit about the kind of sentiment around the game. The last War Table that they had centered around the beta, they obviously revealed the Spiderman news, and there's a lot of negativity surrounding the game. I was contributing to that a little bit, unfortunately. I've had a lot of time to kind of get over it, I guess, for lack of a better term. And yeah, I mean, it does suck. It is what it is. I'm still going to play it on Xbox. I still think it's really bad. I hope that they're able to reveal at some point that it is a timed exclusive. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. But I mean, the beta came out, and the game's actually out right now. Some people are playing it early, and there's a lot of positive things I'm seeing. This War Table actually started with them showing some clips from the community's experience with the beta. And if you listen to some of the stuff that they're saying, it's clear that they are not still mad about the Spider-Man stuff. Let's take a listen.
Yo, that was just like the movie.
Oh my God, that was sick.
Look at her. Look at my girl.
I'm giving this it's so cinematic.
Like, this game's gonna dominate my life. Like, this is what I want out of this experience.
Holy. Okay.
I'm ready, dude. Just give me the game. Just give me the game. What? What? Oh, you can? Wow.
Hulk going the Hulk Buster. That's amazing. I don't think I can keep up with how much action is being thrown at me right now.
Oh my God, this game is everything I've ever wanted.
And it's not just that either. Like, I've been on Twitter, obviously, like a lot of you, and I am seeing a lot of people posting positive things about their experience with at least the opening levels of the game, which is really good to see. But yeah, this War Table is all about the day one experience, or like the kind of first few days experience, what you can expect. They did reveal quite a bit, and there's a lot of cool stuff I saw. So let's get into it. There's three kind of things that they talked about. The first one being the day one experience. Then they went over what you can expect from the end game, at least at launch, and they went in more detail as far as what operations are and what they offer. So let's start with the day one experience. That is the first thing they talked about. Obviously, the main kind of meat and potatoes of your day one experience is going to be the reassemble campaign. They kind of went into detail a little bit about some of the mission types that you would experience. The one they kind of focused on was the origin stories. I don't know if this is the same as a hero mission. I'm thinking that this is kind of a one-off that happens for every hero, but interestingly enough, they did mention that like two of the examples they gave for hero missions or origin stories, my apologies, it was for Miss Marvel and MODOK, which is weird because MODOK obviously is one of the villains in the game. And if you get to play his origin story, that'd be pretty cool. Obviously, we know we get to play as the heroes, but if you get to play as a villain, even if it's just in the campaign, that's kind of an interesting take. Because I mean, one thing that's true with all superheroes is they're only as good as their villains. If the villains are boring and not interesting, then the heroes themselves aren't interesting because the stakes are lower if you don't really care about the villain, or if you don't kind of believe that the villain is capable of anything bad. That's one of the reasons why I'm not going to try not to bring up DC too much, but that's one of the reasons why Batman's so awesome, is because his villains are so cool. And that's one of the reasons why Infinity War and Endgame was so great, was because Thanos was so cool. So yeah, if you get any kind of experience, even if it's just a cutscene, just something that kind of showcases the villain, his motives and stuff like that, that's really awesome. That was one thing that kind of piqued my interest. So I'm really excited to see that. And they said villains as well. So there could be more than one. I have a hard time believing that MODOK's the only like mega bad guy. They said that this kind of story is going to unveil itself over the course of many years, but they also revealed in the first stream that MODOK was actually impacted or like a victim of the A-Day event. So I find it hard to believe that he's the one that kind of orchestrated what happened there. If he was himself a victim of it, or maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but if he didn't start the A-Day event, somebody did, and that somebody is probably going to be the next big bad in the story. The other kind of meat and potatoes that is going to be offered day one is the Avengers Initiative, which is kind of like the leveling process. Like that's kind of, I mean, you can technically take part in it at any point. That's like your harm rooms, your war zones, and like the PvE kind of additional experiences that you can take place in. My kind of like idea of how I'm going to play it is pretty much just soak in the campaign as much as I can. It would be a shame if there was some kind of blockers in the campaign, the story, where you had to kind of go off and kind of grind out some war zones and stuff like that to level up in order to progress. I'm okay with doing side quests that have little stories to them. That's something I'm actually going to seek out. But yeah, the Avengers Initiative is kind of like how you're going to get from wherever you end up at the end of the campaign to the max level, which they did actually reveal today. May have been revealed before, but this is the first time I heard it. The level cap is actually going to be 150, which is a lot of levels. Like if you look at something like Destiny 1, for example, level cap was 20. So 150 levels is quite a lot different, quite a bit more. And keep in mind, you have like a full crew of Avengers you have to level. So I have a feeling you're going to constantly get levels up and constantly get that dopamine rush of leveling up, which is good. I mean, everybody loves to see that kind of flashy animation of a level up happening. But back into the Avengers Initiative, they did mention that there's going to be special day one rewards for taking part in the Avengers Initiative during launch. They didn't really put a time frame on that, but I have a feeling it's probably not day one. It's probably like the launch weekend maybe, or the launch week. It does come out on a Friday for everybody, so the weekend could make sense as well. They kind of went into detail a little bit on some of the kind of things that they didn't really talk about in terms of the campaign. Nothing story related, but they did kind of take an effort to showcase that the levels that you play in the campaign are going to be full and chock full of secrets and Easter eggs and different lore pieces. One thing that's really interesting to me is they keep kind of focusing on the comics. Obviously, they keep bringing up comic covers and use comics as a way to kind of explain some of the decisions that they made with the characters, which is cool. One thing I really am hoping for is that there is a collectible in the game that is a comic book that you can actually like read in the game. I know like Gears of War did that, where if you collect the cog tags, it unlocks pages of a Gears comic book, which is really cool. I mean, the comics are sold in issues, so it is good for them, like good marketing. If you can find comic book fragments or something like that in the campaigns, and then piece together like maybe a first couple issues in a run of whatever superhero, like a Captain America, for example. One that's really cool that you can actually kind of read the comics, because there's not enough people reading comics in my opinion. But that could entice you to maybe buy some more of the issues in that story arc, or buy the trade for that arc or what have you. I think that would be a really cool collectible. One of the few collectibles that I could see like really being worth it to collect for something more than just an achievement or a trophy. They did mention that there's going to be daily and weekly missions that reset, obviously daily and weekly, as well as vendors that reset daily, which is pretty cool. They also said that there's going to be weekend events, which I believe they called the AIM Secret Labs, which, I mean, I guess that's their attempt at Xur. They did kind of make an effort to kind of say that these weekend events are going to be really lucrative for anyone who's leveling, which again kind of gives really big Xur vibes if you're a Destiny fan. It's really, really cool. They said that the daily and weekly missions are going to come from the two factions in the game, the Shield Agents and the Inhuman Intelligence faction. They said you can expect to have 8 assignments and 1 villain sector per day. A villain sector, they later explained, is kind of like a almost like a boss rush, but it's just like the one boss. But the way that they were talking about it, they made it seem that the boss will actually scale and level as you level, and then the rewards for completing that will also scale as you level. So if that's the case and that's there every day, then that's just more of that kind of breadcrumb mechanic that's going to keep you logging in every day, which is, and the way that they show it, if you take a look here, they have like, it looks exactly like Destiny bounties. So one thing that's kind of cool, like Destiny bounties, obviously, like, they're fun or whatever. You go and collect them and you go and do them or whatever, and you get the dopamine rush of completing them and getting the rewards and whatnot. But once you get to max level, they kind of just become, I don't know, a little bit more grindy. You're not really seeing the same rewards that you did while you were leveling, because you got a lot of XP and a lot of useful things from them. But in Avengers, where you are going to have an entire like squad of guys to level up, it's not just one character, guys and girls, I should say, being able to come back with them and constantly get daily quests, that's going to be really fun, in my opinion, for anyone who's like really really focused on kind of creating a really good squad. And it's going to be worth it to really level up your squad, and which you'll find out in a little bit. Next up, they also talked about shield vaults, which is something really cool as well. They're kind of like, the way they explained it, it kind of seemed a little bit like a lost sector in Destiny. I'm going to, like, side note, I'm going to compare Destiny to this a lot, because I have a ton of time played in Destiny. It's a similar game in terms of its like loop, its gameplay loop. Not necessarily like at a high level or a low level where you're comparing an FPS to a third-person action game, but just on a high level in terms of like the type of things that the game is trying to funnel you into doing, and the kind of feedback loop that you get from doing things. They are similar to a certain extent, and I am going to compare them a lot, because that's where a lot of my knowledge for this genre comes from. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, Shield Vaults, it's a little bit tied into the story. It has to do with Nick Fury's disappearance during A-Day, but what they are essentially is hidden lost sectors. They did kind of mention that you do have to find them, and they kind of made a big deal about somebody in the beta actually finding it. So hopefully that's the case, because the one thing about lost sectors is in Destiny anyway, they are marked on your map, so it's not like they're hidden really. If you just open your map, they're there. So hopefully these are a little bit more hidden, kind of make you explore a little bit more, which would be cool. But essentially they're kind of hidden treasure troves missions, which is what they described it as. And they also said it's critical to getting ready for endgame. So I'm assuming that means they're going to be hard to find, hard to complete, and probably scaling the same way that the villain missions do, where you can kind of repeat them probably within like the weekly lockout or the daily lockout to kind of get you to the end game level of 150. They went into more detail about enemies in the game, which is surprising to me. They announced there's 50 different types of enemies. Now, sure, like a lot of those 50 are going to be variants of different types of enemies. Like you may have a assault rifle soldier and a rocket soldier or whatever, but I have a hard time believing that like the majority of them are going to be. So I think there is going to be some pretty good variety in what you're fighting. They said that many of those 50 come from AIM, which makes sense because that's like the main antagonist. They really showcased the beekeepers, which are kind of like the foot soldiers for AIM. They mentioned the adaptoids, which is like one of the main kind of they're not going to be bosses, but that's kind of like maybe an elite kind of enemy, like a fallen captain or like a taken knight kind of kicking it back to Destiny. But anyways, they also kind of unveiled a new enemy. I believe it's new. I mean, I'm not like a wizard with Marvel Comics, but I haven't heard of a monotronic Exo before. I have heard of the Quintronic Exo Man, which they reference as being the inspiration for the monotronic Exo. Quintronic Exo Man, I hope that's in the game. I hope that's a boss, because that's like a huge robot. That's basically like a Power Ranger Megazord. It's a huge robot that's controlled by 5 different people. So that would be a really cool boss. But the monotronic Exo is what you would expect. It's basically one guy in an exosuit. It looks a lot like Ripley, honestly, in the Power Loader from Aliens, which that's really cool. Aliens really awesome. Anyways, there's another faction of enemies that they mentioned as well called the Watchdogs. They are described as human terrorists that are fighting against what they perceive to be a threat from the Inhumans or like the Avengers and other heroes and stuff like that. And obviously AIM has the same enemies, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend type deal. They're not necessarily like partners, but they all have similar goals and trying to kill us, so they're going to team up and fight us there. Yeah, so that's kind of what you can expect, at least in day one, or like the launch week, so to speak, for like kind of like the leveling experience, which from the sounds of it, like the rumors for the campaign length is close to 30 hours, which is insane. And the fact that you have like, they quote described it as brimming with secrets and Easter eggs and lore, the hidden comic books. You have the daily and weekly missions to help level you as well, plus the shield vaults, or aka lost sectors. Sounds like there's a lot of content there to get you from 1 to 150. So that's really cool. But then they talked about what you're going to do when you get closer or hit that 150 point, and that's the end game, obviously.
We're in the end game now.
So the first thing they hit on was endgame events. They said they're going to be weekly and seasonal events. They said that those weekly and seasonal events will give you, or could potentially give you, exclusive cosmetic gear rewards, which is kind of like, it's almost like the Fortnite events a little bit, where there's like different things that you can do to get exclusive rewards, or to kind of kick it back to Destiny again, sort of like maybe the Solstice event, where you can get like certain armor if you do certain things. So that's really cool. Like the more little breadcrumb trails, more things you have to chase in a game like this, the better. Like that's what keeps people logging in every day. Then they brought up something that's really, really cool. Actually, sorry, I skipped one thing about events. They did say that with these seasonal events, you can also expect to see new locations and new enemies. They did reveal one of the first new locations that you'll see, and they kind of implied that this was going to be coming like significantly close to launch. Like it's not something that you can expect. They didn't give the impression anyway that it's like maybe like a November, December release. They kind of made it seem like this is coming like a week or two after launch. But it's the Shield Substation 0, which is essentially a social hub, or like a Destiny tower, which is really cool because that it's not really a big deal, but like if you talk to any Destiny player, or even any Division player, or like a World of Warcraft player, anyone that plays a game like a shared world game like this, you do spend quite a lot of time in the hub. Like I spent a shit ton of time, sorry, excuse my French, I spent a lot of time in the tower. There's tons of times where I fell asleep just walking around the tower, waking up to the tower music. In like World of Warcraft, you spend a lot of time in Stormwind or Orgrimmar. In Division, you spend a lot of time in your base of operation. That's kind of like something that was missing that I never even really thought of until they brought it up. So it's good to see that that's coming there. But that's going to be one of the first weekly events, or seasonal events, I should say. It's going to be centered around Substation 0. And there's also a new kind of story beat that I won't get too much into, because I kind of want to keep the story spoilers as low as possible. But the next thing they talked about in terms of an endgame activity is mega hives. This was probably the most intriguing thing that they revealed to me with this stream. What mega hives are essentially is a weekly mission where it's almost like an infinite kind of roguelike sort of deal. The way it looked like, it almost kind of looked like a kill tower in Mortal Kombat, where you basically are fighting waves of enemies culminating in a boss in like a huge kind of tower simulation or a tower. It just looks like a tower essentially. A huge room obviously, but it's shaped like a tower when they showed like the graphic of it. And then every time that you complete a wave and kill the boss, you're going to go up a level where that wave and that boss, the next wave and that next boss is going to be different, and it's going to be harder. And you basically just keep going and going and going until you wipe. And then when you wipe, you get your rewards. The longer you last, the better rewards you get. One mechanic that's kind of cool is you have your whole Avengers squad. I think you choose 4 heroes, I believe they said. And every time you die, you're going to spawn in as your next Avenger. So there's going to be some strategy in terms of how you kind of line up your roster. Like if you have one Avenger who you know is going to be able to carry you far, you might save them till the end so you can get through the easier waves with your quote weaker Avengers. But that kind of like infinite grind, like it's almost like the Nightfall too, because they did say that it's a weekly mission, so it's similar to a Nightfall. But yeah, that seemed really interesting to me. The other thing in the end game that really piqued my interest was what they called AIM Secret Labs. So this is like, I don't want to say it's a raid because I said this before. I don't think that Destiny raids or even Warcraft raids are ever really going to be replicated. Like I think those experiences are just so incredible, like in terms of their like mechanics and what they require from a team to complete. But this seems like it's something that's coming really close. Also, I don't want to not say this, but the Division raid is also really good. So those 3 games, in my opinion, have really solid co-op raid content. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. I probably shouldn't do this all in one take. It is kind of a little bit rough, but forgive me. Anyways, back to AIM Secret Labs. So they did say that there is a power level requirement to enter. They didn't say that it's max, but they did say that there is a power level requirement to enter, max being 150. It seems like this is the hardest content in the game. It does require 4 players, so it is a co-op, like team-based event. And they said that there is essentially a huge kind of room of different enemies that are kind of mechanically harder to defeat. You're going to need kind of a diverse lineup of players. You're not going to be able to all have like the same kind of build. You're going to want diversity in that. There's a time limit, and it ends with what they called a massive boss fight. So I don't think that it's going to be a new boss. I think it might be recycled bosses. Maybe it's more than one. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. They obviously didn't show what the boss is, but they did say that it is going to be like the most rewarding content and also the most difficult content. The fact that it has a power level requirement is really cool, because that's something to strive for. I mentioned earlier in the video that the most important thing in a game like this is to have kind of a breadcrumb to always chase after, or like a carrot on a stick type deal, which sounds bad when you say it, but that's the type of stuff that's going to make people want to log in. As long as the game's fun, then people aren't going to mind chasing those things. But the other thing that's super important is there has to be something that you know is at the end of that tunnel, the end of that chase, that's worth it. And if this AIM Secret Lab, if that can be that thing, then that's really the really brings that game full circle, and that's something that they're going to really have to nail. And I'm really excited to get to max level and check that out. That's kind of all they talked about for Endgame. They did say that the Avengers Initiative, which I talked about it earlier as being kind of like your leveling up process, but that was a little bit inaccurate. What it really is kind of like the game after the campaign. So that does take into consideration like the war zones and stuff like that you might use to level after the campaign, but it also takes into account every kind of content, that every type of content or all the content that gets released between now and however long, probably whenever they release a major expansion, then they'll probably call it something else. But they did say that with the Avengers Initiative, it is going to introduce new heroes, villains, and stories, which is kind of something we already knew, but they kind of went into more detail into how that's going to get bundled up, and what those are going to be is called operations. And they revealed what the first operation is. We kind of got a little bit of tease of it already when they told us about Hawkeye. Keep in mind, I did get the Hawkeye graphic novel that Hawkeye is actually based off of in the game. So I have read that. It's actually really, really good. It's actually my first Marvel comic I made. All the comics behind me, if you can see them, you can't really see them. All these comics down here, almost all those are DC. Sorry for the mic noise. But yeah, that's the first Marvel comic I read, and it's fantastic. And this Hawkeye is not exactly the Hawkeye that you know from the MCU or the Marvel movies. So it's really cool what they're doing here. But they also announced that the next, or the other, I guess, hero coming in the first operation, which is called Operation Kate Bishop Taking Aim. I believe that's the name. That's the graphic they showed us. Is, spoilers, Kate Bishop, which is a character that's, I'm not going to get too much into it because that's in another video, but it's a character that's deeply tied to Hawkeye. Obviously, as you can see from the video you're watching now, she's an archer similar to Hawkeye. But yeah, how these operations work in terms of the narrative is this one in particular is taking place directly after the finale of the Reassemble campaign. And it's going to introduce a new story. I mean, they didn't talk about length or anything like that, but it's a new story with a new villain, and it's coming with the launch of Substation Zero, which, like I said earlier, they kind of alluded to that being something that is going to come relatively soon. I could be completely wrong. They like I said, they never told us a date, but the way they were talking about it, it made it seem like it was something that wasn't too far out. And yeah, so the first operation, just a little quick recap. It's going to contain Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, and it's going to introduce a new story that takes place directly after the Reassemble campaign, bringing in new villains and bringing in the social space, Substation Zero. And then there's going to be seasonal and weekly events that kind of pile on top of that. And those operations are completely free, which I think is really cool. Now, they did kind of, I guess they didn't reveal it, but people found out because they are playing the game. Every, like some of the monetization, like some of the stuff you will have to pay for was kind of revealed. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that, but there was a kind of a little bit of, I don't know, mini outrage, let's call it, on how they're monetizing the battle passes. Instead of having a battle pass that you kind of buy each season and then kind of progress through and unlock skins for your heroes, you actually have to buy a battle pass for every hero to kind of unlock all of those rewards. Now, I don't want to talk too much about it because I didn't play the game yet. I haven't actually took a full look at it. But I will say that I am going to be more forgiving of whatever their monetization model is, because from what I understand, it is fully cosmetic, and all of the content that really, really matters, the story, then the characters, except for Spiderman, and the villains, and all of the new areas and locations, all of that's free, and that stuff isn't free for them to develop. So giving it to us for free is the best way to do it, because and then charge it for cosmetics, because it's going to keep the community together. It's not going to fracture anybody. There's not going to be people playing content that they paid for, that their friends didn't pay for, that they can't play. That kind of stuff plagued the last generation of games. So it's great to see that this game is giving the actual playable content and the gameplay stuff away for free. So yeah, that was kind of everything they showed. They did kind of tease a little bit what we can expect from the next war table, which presumably is going to come maybe near the end of September, early October. They said with that, they're going to give us a recap of the launch event. They want people to share any awesome videos or any content that they've created within the first few weeks of the game to showcase the community reaction, similar to the video that you saw at the beginning of this war table. They said that they're going to give us the roadmap, which is common for games like this, of what we can expect post-launch. Usually those are going to showcase at least roughly what you can expect for the year. So I'll look really forward to seeing that. I can't wait to see what heroes are actually going to be revealed. There was a minor, or I guess a little bit of a leak, where the PC players were able to get into the files and see all the heroes that were referenced in the code base. Doesn't necessarily mean that is confirming that they're going to be playable heroes. It just means that they're in the code base. So that could be a reference to something in the story. It could be just NPC. Like, you don't know. We don't know. So we'll wait until some more official announcements are made. And I do plan on making a video of some of the heroes that I hope to see. So stay tuned for that. Hope to get that out soon as well. I have my list. And if they can nail that list, this game is going to be great. Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Remember to have fun out there, and I'll see you next time.